Hello and welcome to our English news edition broadcast to you from Canal, Algérie. First, to the headlines. This new academic year is marked by the introduction of the English language in primary schools, and the preparations are also marked by the distribution of the first English books and the appointment of English teachers across the national territory. The Algerian ambassador to France, Saïd Moussi, carries out his first visit to the Mosque of Paris, where he meets its dean, Shamsuddin Hafiz, and reiterates Algeria's deep attachment to work with this institution. The Makhzen policy is pushing towards thousands of citizens to take to the streets in order to denounce the ruling regime and protest against the high cost of living. Good evening, those with today's top stories. First, in our news, Prime Minister Ayman bin Abdurrahman chaired over a meeting of the government held on Wednesday. The meeting started with the examination of a draft bill of general policy that will be presented to the Parliament according to the Constitution. In the justice sector, the Minister of Justice presented a preliminary draft bill on the repression of the violation of the legislation and regulation of foreign exchange and capital movements from and to other countries. Furthermore, the Justice Minister presented a communication of the main lines of the current revision of the law on prevention and fight against corruption, the aim of which is to create a national agency for the management of seized, frozen and confiscated assets resulting from corruption. In other news, and following a thorough study conducted by experts and specialists in national education, the English language will be officially taught in primary schools starting this new academic year. The preparations are marked by the distribution of the first English books and the appointment of newly hired English teachers. More details with Ines Kilo.
My English book, the first English language book for primary school pupils, has just been published by the National Office of School Textbooks, following the decisions of the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, to introduce the teaching of this language in primary cycle. The decision was taken during the Council of Ministers on June 19th, since the battle has been waged to make this project a success. After a thorough study conducted by experts and specialists, the pedagogical content of English textbook has been validated by the National Institute of Educational Research, and the National Office of School Textbooks has begun the publication of nearly 1 million books for third-year primary students.
The first shipment of English language textbooks were sent on Wednesday morning to Adrar, Tindouf and Ama provinces. A follow-up mechanism for the distribution operation has been set up. This operation will continue until September 21st, when more than 20,000 primary schools across the country will be provided with textbooks in the language of Shakespeare. Thus, all the human, material and organizational means for a successful introduction of this language in the primary cycle will be available.
On the other hand, after receiving their assignments at the level of the Directorate of Education of Ouargla province, the English language teachers will join their positions on a contractual basis in the primary cycle in the various communes of the province. The teachers concerned will benefit from a free training sessions supervised by the educational inspectors.
The teachers were selected according to the criteria focused on experience and qualifications. The process was transparent. We have been waiting for a very long time for this decision, which I welcome. Learning English is an added value. It's the language of knowledge, and I think it's a very good thing for children to learn it at a very young age.
Making English the second foreign language in Algeria was a great decision, which was welcomed with great enthusiasm by parents and their children, who are impatiently waiting for the start of the new educational year 2022-2023.
Prior to the new academic year and as part of the solidarity operation supporting the border areas, the Algerian Red Crescent sent an aid shipment from the Boufarik military airport to Borj Beji Mukhtar province. 2,400 school bags, tents, medical equipment, supplies and foodstuffs were sent following the recent floods which affected the region. The Algerian Red Crescent will also organize in the coming days regular medical shipments to Borj Beji Mukhtar. It is worth noting that this operation was carried out with the participation of the National People's Army, which always backs such humanitarian initiatives and noble tasks. In another development, Algeria's new ambassador to France, Saïd Moussi, carried out his first visit to the Mosque of Paris, where he met with its dean, Shamsuddin Hafiz. He also reiterated Algeria's deep attachment to work with this institution for the benefit of its community settled abroad. Report by Afaf Belhushat, commentary by Melissa Kubash.
The Algerian ambassador to France, Saïd Moussi, has carried his first courtesy visit since his appointment in the Grand Mosque of Paris. A launch was organized on his honor in the presence of numerous French figures of Algerian origin and representatives of different French federations of the Grand Mosque of Paris. In his keynote speech, the Chancellor of Paris's Grand Mosque highlighted the strong ties binding this institution and Algeria, which remain the reference of Islam and tolerance.
Depuis sa création en 1926, la Grande Mosquée de Paris.
Since its creation in 1926, the Grand Mosque of Paris continued to maintain and strengthen its relation with Algeria. And when I came to head of this institution, I wanted to strengthen and develop this historic and creative bond. After my election in January 2022, I had the honor to be received by the Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune and Mr. Youssef Belmehdi, Minister of Religious Affairs and Waqfs. I received during my visit advice on important topics, namely the prevention of radicalization. And as soon as I arrived to Paris, I published, with the help of our detached imams, a pamphlet titled 20 Recommendations for the Prevention of Radicalization, recalling that Algeria's experience must provide solutions to this scourge that affects not only France but Europe as well. This occasion was also an opportunity for Mr. Moussi to reaffirm Algeria's support for the Grand Mosque of Paris, namely in its program to fight against radicalization and its effort to maintain a religious frame at the level of mosques, allowing a large number of our community to practice its religion in the best conditions.
Having recently taken up my position, I obviously responded to the invitation of Paris's Grand Mosque's Chancellor. Today, I met members of our Algerian Muslim community settled here in France. On this occasion, it was very important as Algeria's ambassador to show the support of the state's high authorities, at their head, the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, for the Grand Mosque of Paris, which was at the front row when it comes to spreading Islam in France, especially with the appointment of the new Chancellor, Mr. Shamsuddin Hafiz. We can see through his actions and decisions for the benefit of our Algerian community and the fight against the scourge of radicalization. Therefore, I am very happy to be here today.
Écoutez, d'abord, moi je voudrais féliciter le nouvel ambassadeur d'Algérie qui a été nommé récemment par...
First, I would like to congratulate the new Algerian ambassador who was recently appointed by the President of the Republic. For me, Mr. Saïd Moussi is the symbol of this Algeria that never denied its history. Today, and with great joy, I welcomed him here at the Grand Mosque of Paris because, as I said earlier, he represents Algeria, a country that I love. Now, I look at the future with great hope because we have an important work to continue, thanks to the major help provided by the Algerian authorities. And with that, I try to do my best for both France and Algeria, namely to prevent radicalization and meet the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune's expectations. It is worth mentioning that works are called to be intensified, especially that Paris's Grand Mosque will be celebrating its centenary next month, October 18th.
In other news, and according to a communique released by the Ministry of National Defense, 4 elements belonging to terrorist groups and 36 drug traffickers were arrested. Several attempts to smuggle large quantities of drugs from the border with Morocco were also thwarted by detachments of our National People's Army, reflecting thus the high professionalism of our armed forces. Melissa Kobash once again.
Within the framework of the fight against terrorism, detachments of the National People's Army arrested 4 individuals supporting terrorist groups in separate operations carried across the national territory, while another detachment discovered and destroyed 6 homemade bombs in the province of Jijel. Concerning the fight against organized crime and in continuity with the intense efforts aimed at countering the scourge of narco-trafficking in our country, detachments of the National People's Army have arrested in coordination with various security services during various operations carried across military regions 36 drug traffickers and thwarted attempts to smuggle huge quantities of drugs across the borders with Morocco, amounting to 5 quintals and 8.5 kilograms of cannabis, alongside 1 kilogram of cocaine and 341,337 psychotropic tablets. The detachments of the National People's Army also intercepted in the provinces of Tamnaras, Ain Saleh, Borj Baji Mukhtar, Ain Gazam, Janet, and Tindouf 84 individuals and seized 27 vehicles, 114 generators, 80 jackhammers, 1 metal detector, detonating tools and equipment used in illegal gold mining operations. 4 other individuals were apprehended and 9 hunting rifles, 388 bullets, 57,070 packets of cigarettes were seized in Walad Jalal, Wargla, Al-Wad, Tukurt, Adrar, Khanshla, Stif, and Al Bayt provinces. For their part, the border guards, in coordination with the National Gendarmerie Services, thwarted attempts to smuggle large quantities of fuel, amounting to 125,073 liters, in Borj Baji Mukhtar, Tamin Rast, Tibissa, At-Tarif, and Sugaras provinces. Finally, the Coast Guards thwarted at the level of our national coast attempts of illegal immigration and rescued 74 individuals on board homemade boats, while 49 illegal immigrants from different nationalities were arrested throughout the national territory.
In a different context, the Moroccan population is suffering from drought and a sharp rise in the price of fuel and basic foodstuffs. The Makhzen policy is doing nothing but pushing thousands of citizens to take to the streets in order to denounce the ruling regime. More insights with Ines Killo.
The drinking water shortage, the drought that threatens agriculture, and the precariousness housing. All these problems are part of the daily life of Moroccans, more than 80% of whom live below the poverty line. A country facing an unprecedented social crisis that has seen the streets taken over by demonstrators on a daily basis for months. Hundreds of citizens occupy the Moroccan streets, protesting against their miserable life conditions, the high cost of living, the violation of human rights, the normalization with the Zionist entity, and the attacks on individual freedoms by the Makhzen. The Moroccan are demanding the departure of the Akhanouch government, which they describe as weak and incompetent. The terrible life conditions created by the Makhzen regime has pushed many young Moroccans to flee the country, looking for a better life at their own cost. Moroccans continue to express their frustration, holding marches and strikes. This week, several strikes are announced in different sectors, notably health and education. For his part, the Makhzen is completely ignoring the legitimate demands of professionals in all sectors at a time when the Moroccan Union of Higher Education is threatening to boycott the start of the new academic year due to the absence of a specific framework law. The contractual teachers has not failed of the government and the Ministry of Education to settle the files of educational staff, calling for a serious treatment of the problems of public education and its employees in all cycles. They also called on the ministry to solve the problem and diffuse the tensions in order to avoid a total paralysis of the educational sector.
And the Russian president is threatening to stop all hydrocarbons deliveries in case of a price cap. Vladimir Putin reacts following the G7 countries' statement made last week on wanting to urgently implement a capping of the Russian oil price. This would be an absolutely stupid decision, said Putin during an economic forum in Vladivostok, thus raising fears of a fuel shortage in Europe. And with this, our today's news edition comes to a close. Thank you for joining us, and goodbye for now.